All right, we are live. Very exciting. As always, good morning to the people on the East Coast. Good early morning to the people on the West Coast. Good afternoon for the people around the world. Super exciting, really interesting topic today that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a big fail. A big fail, and what that means for augmented reality and why it's really important. But if this is your first time on the cast or the Tech Talk, I'm Rob Petrosino. It's very nice to meet you. We're going to be talking about augmented reality, spatial computing a little bit today, a little bit of human-centric design. So hang in there, enjoy your time, have a good one, and we're going to talk a lot about what failure looks like in an AR experience. So with that, I'm going to throw the Twitch stream in the comments here. If you're on a platform and you're struggling with the stream, I understand. Come on over to Twitch. We have a great stream and it's a little bit faster. That being said, for those of you who don't know what the Synth Reality Tech Talk is, we're here to educate you on emerging technologies, make you feel more confident in what's happening in the market, and make sure you understand why you can go out and adopt technology quickly and rapidly, and most importantly, be seen as a thought leader between you, your friends, and your organization. Got a new mic, so hopefully the sound settings are a little bit more mint. I know we were using a subpar mic previously, but with that, if you have comments, if you have questions, if you have ideas or opinions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I have a bunch of different chats open. No matter what platform you're on, I can get your comment, and I'm happy to reply and let you know what my thoughts are. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition over to the screen share here and chat about what the spatial computing spectrum is and what this really big fail was for organizations. So let's head on over to the screen share. All right, so just to recap, we always talk about this. We always like to start off with a little bit of education and information. What we're seeing is the spatial computing spectrum. On one side, you have virtual reality. That means I lose all of the real world around me. I'm completely immersed in a digital world. On the left-hand side, I have the physical world and augmented reality, which means that I take additional information, 3D objects, data display, and overlay it on the real world around me. Think of a heads-up display on your dashboard or on your windshield. That would be augmented reality. On the far right hand side, virtual reality, I pop into a headset and see what it's like to be on Mars in 360 degrees with 6 degrees of motion, and I can look in every direction and see what it looks like on Mars. Okay, now what we're going to transition, what we haven't talked about before, is what's human-centric design and what human-centric design actually means for augmented reality experiences, and why this is really important. It leads up and it sets the principles of what the big fail actually happened from the Prime Minister of the UK, which we will get into if you haven't seen it. So human-centric design, it starts out with this idea of empathy at the core. Okay, you have to be empathetic to user. You have to understand what the user's motivation drivers, etc., are and what that means for them. You should always be empathy driven first for any experience. It doesn't matter who your user is, but you should always be empathetic of them in every way. On top of that empathy is you build your business need. Once you have your business need and you understand what you're trying to convey, then you can understand how you build a design to support that methodology. So empathy first, always. Business need built on top of that, then designed to support the overall experience. This is human-centric design in 30 seconds or less. If I know who my user is, I'm empathetic to how they experience things, and I understand what my business need and how it aligns to that user, I then can design an experience that's meaningful and valuable to them and makes them understand why it's important and what information they're getting is meaningful. Okay, so that's the left-hand side, human-centric design. Very straightforward. Nothing that's too crazy. If you haven't heard of human-centric design before, we can have another talk. Just let me know. Hit the socials down below. We'll chat about it. On the right-hand side is a fantastic diagram of different user spaces when it comes to augmented reality. Okay, we're going to start from the furthest one and we're going to work our way in. The first one away is about 25 feet to 12 feet. That range is usually and typically called the public space. The public space is an area outside of the user, from the user standing in a single space. That public space is anywhere between 12 and 25 feet away. Inside of that is a social space. This is where you would have friends stand and talk to you. Okay, that is about 4 feet to 12 feet. If someone was walking up to you, you have given them a nice amount of social space when you're passing them during the pandemic, so that you did not get into their social space. The personal space sphere is about 1.5 feet to about 4 feet away. That is when someone's talking very closely to your ear and leaning in and having a conversation with you. Anything inside of the 1.5 feet from the user is intimate space. It is a best practice not to have anything within the intimate space. You should at least have 1.5 feet away from the device center. And the reason for that is because at 1.5 feet, which is very, very close, it's going to be extremely difficult to have that experience and understand what the meaning and value is of something in augmented or virtual reality. Okay, so it's something to keep in mind and something to think through. This is a very, very important piece of information to keep in mind when we talk about what's happening in the later slides with this massive failure. So again, public space, that is something that's grander, that's something that's publicly available, that's something that's further away. That a billboard experience. Social space would be something that's a little bit more intimate, something in the retail shopping experience. And then personal space is a little bit edgy and a little bit close for you to interact with something. This is more of a tabletop experience, and we should really stay away from the intimate space because it's very hard to use that space and drive it a meaningful, empathy-focused augmented reality or human-centered design experience. Okay, fantastic. Now, we want to talk about one specific idea related to this. So we talked about empathy-driven experiences through human-centric design, which means we now need to talk about target audience and device limitations. Okay, when it comes to a target audience, we want to have the lowest barrier of entry if we're going for an extremely large-scale audience experience. What does that mean? If I am targeting a direct-to-consumer experience, I need to have the lowest barrier of entry, okay, when it comes to an augmented reality experience. And the reason for that is because most people do not have these headsets, okay? And there's a lot of different headsets that are out there, but if they want to have an interactive spatial computing experience, I used augmented reality, but even virtual reality, those experiences are driven to a smaller audience based on the device that's required. What does that mean? Well, Rob, if I want to have a virtual reality experience where I'm fully immersed, I must have a VR headset. You used to be able to use Google Cardboard. Absolutely. You could drop your cell phone into a little cardboard thing and hold it up to your face. Is that still viable? Absolutely. But if I want to have an interactive and immersive experience, I'm going to need hardware that supports that. Okay, if I'm having a direct-to-consumer experience that's specific for VR, I need to understand what devices my target audience have and make sure I'm building an empathy-first experience for them. Great. Well, what if I don't want to do VR and I want to do augmented reality? That's fine. You still have a slew of augmented reality headsets that are out in the market, from Nreal to Magic Leap to TCL's new device that came out. Even the Meta Quest Pro 2 and Varjo have the option to do pass-through augmented reality. However, those devices require financial investment. On the low end, it's $379, $399 for these Nreal glasses. On the high end, you're looking up towards $7,000. So my target audience has to have an experience that is geared towards the hardware and is enabled by the hardware that they have. Now, you may say, well, Rob, if I want to go direct to consumer, what does that look like? Fantastic question. Most people have one of these devices, right? A smartphone device. The target audience for a lot of organizations have a smart device in their home or have access to a smart device. So that is typically the lowest barrier of entry when it comes to an augmented reality experience. For those of you that are just hopping in across a bunch of different channels, make sure If you have a comment or idea, leave it in the chat. I can see you no matter where you are. If you're struggling with the stream on one platform, I put the Twitch link in there. Copy that, paste that over, and Twitch has a chat as well, and we'll get to your comments or questions. So, lowest barrier of entry, how do I enable a person, a direct-to-consumer experience to have the lowest barrier of entry and engage with my experience? Well, you can build that for iOS and Android, and typically your easiest entry point is going to be augmented reality, because the cameras and smartphones that are available have cameras on them. Because they have cameras on them, you can more readily available access that as an augmented reality experience. Okay, so let's get to the big fail. Well, here we go. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister of the UK. We have to call out that this whole experience was, what I'm going to say, not empathy driven and not really delivering the who, what, where, when, or how you would deploy an augmented reality experience. On his Twitter, he posted this QR code. Now, you may say, well, Rob, there's nothing wrong with posting a QR code. QR codes are massively popular, and they've been delivered for years now, right? From the early 90s. Completely agree with you. They have been delivered through the early 90s. The issue with this, though, is that Twitter is a predominant mobile first platform. So what does that mean? Well, if I have a QR code, how am I supposed to engage with it on a mobile first platform since it's already on my screen? If it's on my screen, I can't scan it, or I need a secondary device to scan that. Okay? So if there is a secondary device that I have, I either have to go to my computer, pull it up on my computer, then scan it with my personal device and have the experience. But I'm also forcing that user to use two different devices, which is what I would call less than an ideal experience overall. So now that there's this less than ideal experience that's out in the market, I now have a massive Twitter following that's going to be going and engaging with this experience. And it's not going to be good. And the reason it's not going to be good is because I have to have two devices at a bare minimum. Okay, so even if I get through that portion of it, I'm able to scan it, I go over to my computer, I now have a design that is delivering not a huge value add for the user. They scan this QR code and they have to go to a third-party app, Adobe Aereo. For those of you that don't know, Adobe launched their own QR code augmented reality application. It's called Adobe Aereo. I have to download that application, load that application onto my phone, then scan this QR code again. Once I scan this QR code again, I then see the graphics on the right-hand side here. Now, self-admittedly, these graphics are akin to when QR codes first came out. They look like they're from the early 90s. You get this portion on the right-hand side first, where you have this stereotypical 3D robot, and there's a 250 million euro investment in AI, quantum, and engineering biology. I think that's what it says behind this character's head, so it's a little bit hard to see from that in general. So that's the first portion of this. And then you struggle with watching different things come out of the screen and trying to read them. So look at economic growth, right? I know that it says economic growth because I went through the experience, but it's incredibly hard to view. So not only do I need a second device, not only do I need to download an app, not only do I need to guesstimate what the words are saying based on the design in here, it is also just a not well-designed experience. And the really hard pill to swallow here is innovation means growth, right? So innovation means growth. This doesn't look like growth to me. Now, if they were just trying to do this as a viral presentation and they just wanted it to be, get the most spread that's possible, they got 4.9 million views. But most of the backlash has been real rough, to the point of, if you have time, you can head over to this Twitter account, Rishi Sunak. who's the UK Prime Minister, and read some of the comments. They're pretty hysterical. The number one comment that I saw was someone drawing a path to the center of this black box as if it is a maze with a red pen. Hysterical. Really, really well done. The comments on here are absolutely calling out the fact that there was no hard link, there was no text link in here that I can click as a mobile user and go through the same experience. I had to download a secondary application, and overall it was incredibly, well, lame. Lame's a very good word to explain what this experience was. And because it was lame, it really doesn't bring innovation. There's very little novelty and there's very little empathy for the user. So if I have bad empathy, I have a business need that I want to share with this 250 million euro investment, but I design it in a way that isn't impactful and barely scratches the top of novelty. Well, you're just failing, and failing in a bad way. There's a ton of different platforms that they could have used that are web-based for QR code experiences, so they didn't have to download an app. They could have put a hard link in here. They could have completely changed this design and featured individuals versus just your clip art style graphics in here, and it would have been more impactful. So, yeah, less than ideal, less than human-centric based as far as design, and ultimately not empathy driven at all. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's Tech Talk. I would love to hear what your thoughts are if you're on one of the platforms. I would love to see what your opinion is on this experience, or if you even know this went out. Okay, right? So this is a government-backed experience. This is high value, high ticket dollar. I personally have seen junior individuals create better augmented reality experiences with more human-centric and empathy-driven design, and this one was a tough one to swallow for sure. However, they got a lot of press. They got a lot of publicity, even for myself. 4.9 million views on this type of content is going to drive feedback, and feedback is always a gift, including my own on some of the experiences that I've built out in the past. But with that, we'll wrap up today's Tech Talk. My name is Rob Petrosino, all-around great guy, individual who is here to educate and make you feel like you're a thought leader on different things that are coming out in the market and drive you to push the boundaries of your organization as well as yourself when it comes to these types of topics. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.